Kathy, you're muted.
Thank you. Should we begin?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you, Andrea. I'd like to welcome everyone to our program briefing tonight. This is really the culmination of a 1.5-year study that we have undertaken, and we're delighted to bring into this meeting this evening Commander Kimberly Bowser from District 6 and Lieutenant Michelle Folman, the Director of Training for the Denver Police Department. And I'm happy to say this isn't our first conversation with Commander Bowser, that we had a conversation with her and with sorry, those were words thrown together, Chief of Police Paul Pazin. So we'd like to take you through a series of questions tonight. And Andrea, if you'll go to the next slide. Our presentation will begin with this welcome and introductions. We will have you on silence, ask you to be muted through the conversation. It's going to begin with some questions that we have prepared in advance, and by we, that is the Public Safety Study Group. And that was formed by Barbara Ford, and participating were Andrea Mitchell, Chris Humphreys, myself, Kathy Yates, and Octavia Davis. We were delighted to have Octavia, who is younger, in her 20s, and a college student, who really helped us to ask some really good questions and furthered our understanding. We'll have I will turn this over in a moment to Barbara Ford for upcoming briefings and to share with you our position on public safety. We'll talk more about the history of the group and introductions, and then we'll move into our questions. And once we have gone through the questions our Public Safety Committee formulated, we will then start to entertain questions from you all. Barbara, would you like to make these announcements?
Unmute yourself, Barbara.
Hi, everyone. First of all,
Oh, you went on mute again, Barbara.
okay. I'm glad I can hear you, though. Before I give the upcoming events, I don't think of this as an event, but in a way, it is an annual event, and it's annual and it's an event. So, and it is our 30th annual bulb sale, which is going on now, has just begun, is going on now through June 10th. And but the big news is that you will actually be able to order online this year. So you just go to the League website, and then you go to Storefront, and you'll be able to see all the bulb choices and order. An exciting event that is our annual meeting, which is going to be May 14th. And we are very honored to have Dr. Dawn Davenport, who is the Vice President for the Mental Health Center of Denver for Children, Family, and Community. And she's going to kind of brief us and bring us up to date on what services Mental Health Center has been providing. And then, as you probably are aware, both the US federal government and the president have announced more funding for mental health services, and the Colorado legislature has also budgeted many more dollars for mental health services. So we've asked Dr. Davenport to share with us what her priorities will be for children and families. And then on May 24th, we will have our legislative update with Andrea Wilkins, the Colorado League lobbyist. And that will be at 5:30 p.m. The annual meeting is at 9. It says 9:30, but I think it's at 9, Andrea. So we'll confirm that, but please do plan to attend. The League's position on public safety. We have right here the position on behavioral health and the importance of offering re-entry planning and follow-up for people released from behavioral health hospitalization and the criminal justice system. But the League also has a judicial justice position, which we have been we've been working to evaluate this past year and a half whether it meets the needs of our Denver community, and that the position is support for measures which will improve the selection and preparation of law enforcement officers and which will improve police community relations. So let me turn it back over to Kathy.
Thank you, Barbara. Before I introduce our speakers, I just want to again welcome our guests, if you're not a member of the League, and let you know that the League is a nonpartisan grassroots organization that has worked since the 1930s in Denver and 1920 nationally to improve our systems of government and impact public policies through voter education and advocacy. These briefings throughout the League year serve to educate our members and voters and often lead to advocacy efforts. With that, I'm very pleased to introduce our two speakers from the Denver Police Department. Kimberly Bowser is the commander of Denver Police District 6 with 181 staff members. District 6 encompasses the downtown Denver community and surrounding neighborhoods such as the Golden Triangle, Capitol Hill, and Union Station. Michelle Fulmar is a lieutenant assigned to the department's training director, which oversees the academy, firearms range, and continuing education throughout the department. There are 25 training staff and upwards of 50 to 140 recruits, depending on the training cycles. Thank you very much, Commander Bowser and Lieutenant Fulmar, for joining us today. And you can go ahead and take yourselves off of mute.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having us.
Hi, Kathy and everyone. Thanks for having us.
Thank you. We've provided questions in advance for our two guests that I'm going to present and they will answer. And as mentioned before, and has been the format, if you have questions, please go ahead and put those in chat. After we've gone through our questions, we'll take a moment just to give you some time to think. I know for myself, I have often felt like I want to pay really good attention to our speakers, so I'm not able to formulate questions. And then before I know it, the briefing is ended. So what we're going to do is ask our questions, and then we'll just take a moment to not talk for a few moments, give you a chance to formulate the questions, and then I'll field those to our visitors. So thank you. And why don't we just start with the basics? If you would provide your background, how long you've been with the Denver Police Department, and how long you've been in your job. And why don't we start with you, Commander Bowser?
Thanks, Kathy. And first of all, I just wanted to say thank you for the opportunity to address your group. We were very honored to have been selected as the speakers for this meeting tonight. So with that, my name is Kim Bowser. Let me tell a quick story. So I'm the type of person that really needs to help people. I knew that I was going to be in a profession where I was being helpful. Okay, so I thought I was going to go into the medical field. It was either that or law enforcement. So fast forward to, I watched my mom give blood at the 9 Health Fair one year, and I promptly passed out. So that is where my direction went from there. And as I decided instantly, okay, that's law enforcement for me. So I joined the Denver Police Explorer program when I was 17 years old. From there, I joined the reserve program at 21. And then I came on the job as a sworn officer at 24. So counting all of those years, 29 years in total. However, I just started my 23rd year as a sworn Denver police officer. During that time, I've had a crazy, wonderful, fulfilling time here. I've had the opportunity to work here in District 6 is where I started. I've been a detective in 4 different units. Patrol sergeant in 2 different districts. Then I went to back to the investigative bureau where I supervised detectives again. Then back to District 3, then to the chief's office where I was the chief of staff. Was at the training academy right before I was promoted to District 6. So I know that was kind of a long answer.
That's a great answer. It's a tremendous story, and we really appreciate you sharing it and just your path. It's so rich. Thank you.
Thanks.
Lieutenant Fulmer.
Hi, and thank you again for having us. I really look forward to this opportunity and also hearing your thoughts and questions. And to kind of mirror Commander Bowser Kim, as I call her, and I've been very fortunate to actually follow her through different assignments, and she always leaves it very nice and very organized for me to take over. So it's been great. I actually started out in the medical field. I was a paramedic, and mostly so because it's my first job in college. I couldn't get hired as a wait staff, so I was like, well, I guess I can go work on the ambulance, in which I did. And then that brought me into law enforcement. I grew up more on the in Tennessee and down in the South, made it to San Antonio, and decided, it was a great city, but it was too hot and I missed mountains. And so Denver became home for me in the mid 90s. And I got into law enforcement. I was actually with another agency, but always wanted to be on the Denver Police Department. And so I lateraled over back in 2008. So I have, we're not going to count my paramedic years because then you'll do the math and know how old I am. But I've been in law enforcement for 22 years, and I've had just a tremendous experience. In my former department, I was the first motorcycle female officer there. I was the first female sergeant at that department. I came to Denver. I've been in training a lot. I've been in the academy. My first tour as a technician, and then I was a firearms instructor, and I was actually the first female fire instructor for the Denver Police Department. I've worked in major crimes, domestic violence unit, bias motivated crimes, oversaw that, crisis negotiator, promoted, went back to District 3. That's where I got to follow Kim and reap the benefits of her organizational skills. And then I was in internal affairs. And then from there, I again got to follow Kim and come back to the police academy where, again, she left me a great starting place. And then that's where I am now. So I'm so happy to be back in training and to be able to work not only with the recruits coming on, but also with our sworn personnel on the other side of the department.
That's tremendous. Again, another rich career. And we love hearing of first woman in whatever that role is and being the trailblazer. So thank you both for your dedication to your careers and to serving the community. When you think about the main points of the job description and the scope of your responsibilities, would you just cover what you think are the highlights and the priorities and really what that means so we understand what your job looks like? And I'm going to start with Lieutenant Fulmer on this one, and then we'll go to Commander Bowser.
And I can give a shortened version and certainly expand as needed. I want to be respectful of time. Actually, when I went to the academy, my 3 priorities are grace, grit, and go. So I say that with grace, meaning that we are patient, we are empathetic with ourselves, with the community, that we really embody those principles, guiding principles of our police department. that integrity, courage, and service. For the grit, meaning that we're going to have to face challenges, we're going to have to dig deep in ourselves and look for those opportunities for growth and to meet those challenges with that grace and then go. There is a sense of urgency. Certainly minutes can seem like hours or days to victims. So we need to make sure that we are prepared and ready to go out and serve our community. And, as Kim was saying, we want to be helpful. We want to get people to the help that they need and also help the community problem solve themselves and also be good referral agents to a lot of our other community partners. So that's kind of what I see as some of the foundational expectations that I have from the Academy and recruit side, which oversees the new recruits, the Firearms Academy, and also for that continuing education that we have through our department.
Terrific. Commander Bowser?
So I have been in this role for just over a month, about 5 to 6 weeks. And so I'm still learning my role and my duties and my position, but basically Denver Police is divided up into 6 geographical areas, which we call police districts. I oversee Police District 6, which it encompasses Capitol Hill, Union Station, small part of 5 Points, the Golden Triangle. I might be missing some. Anyway, I oversee all of the patrol functions, all of the investigative work that's done by our District 6 detectives, mainly property crimes, assaults. We don't do things like investigate sex crimes, business robberies, things like that. That's all downtown major crime. So I oversee the 181 staff members here, dealing with community issues, crime issues, of course, and employee issues as they come up, and hopefully they don't much. So that's what I've done so far since I've been here.
Yeah, that's a big job. It's definitely a big job. And what do you like? I mean, obviously you've made this is your life career. What do you like about being a police officer?
I need to feel needed. I like to help people. I like to solve problems. I like to help people solve problems. I really love the diversity of opportunity here, specifically in the Denver Police Department. So I always say, if you don't like the task that you're doing right now, there are so many other opportunities within the department. If you don't like answering the calls for service, maybe you want to go to a different unit. Maybe you want to promote to detective or make a sergeant, or there's just so much opportunity here in Denver that you may not see with a smaller agency. I mean, I could go on and on about what I like about the job, but I'll be respectful of time and let Michelle answer.
That sounds great. Thank you.
Can I just say ditto? That was a fantastic answer. Yeah, to add on, certainly to come from another agency, Denver is where I'm very proud to be a Denver police officer. You have the training, you have the backing, you have the innovation. We are leaders, not only in the state, but certainly regionally and nationally. We have nationally recognized programs here. I enjoy, Sir Robert Peel is considered the grandfather of policing, and one of his principles says, the police are the people and the people are the police. And I really feel that and believe that here. And that's one of the things I really enjoy, that I get to be both. So.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that. And this question is for both of you. How would you describe the values and culture of the Denver Police Department? And then what does that mean to you personally?
Okay, I'll go.
Okay.
I wasn't sure who was going to go first.
I wasn't either.
So I think Michelle kind of indicated this in her last answer, but the mission and vision of the department really is our driving force, right? And what I personally really like, and what speaks to me about our mission and our vision in particular, is that there's duplicate language, right? So the mission and vision have the same language at the beginning, which says, in partnership with the community. I keep saying I like to help people, I like to work together, I like to problem solve. And I think that what sometimes officers don't realize, as well as maybe the community doesn't realize, is that we have a shared and common goal. That common goal being, everyone's safety and success, right? So we have that common and shared goal, and I feel like that mission and vision has that statement right in there in partnership with the community. So that's my answer.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Lieutenant Palmer.
Well, I'm going to bring out a little bit of the teacher inside me. You probably can't see it too much, but I can always send this to you. So in our academy, every day the recruits line up, and anybody that comes through our academy, on that big wall is the police badge, our police badge. And on either side of it is the foundational principles of integrity, courage, and service. And our police badge, I don't know if you knew this, kind of hard to see, but in the middle is a seal of the city. And so it's a reminder that that's who we serve every single day. Serve and protect is our city and the people in it. And then these stars that are on it, these little points on the starburst, because we have a very unique badge that we're very proud of. They actually stand for faith, hope, charity, fortitude, temperance, and integrity and honesty. So each one of these points has that. So that's what recruits from day one see and are reminded that's our core foundation beliefs, and this is what we build everything off of. So that's to bring in a little bit of that is the core foundations of how the department is set and how we start off from day one of you being a Denver police officer.
I did not know that. That's great to hear. Tremendous. All right, these questions are going to be focused for Commander Bowser, and then we'll have a set of questions for Lieutenant Palmer. So we know you're new to your role, Commander Bowser. What do you see as your priorities, and how are you supported so that you can be successful in your job?
Thanks, Kathy. That's a really great question. As you said, and as I've said, I'm very new to this job. So right now, my top priority is listening and learning, meeting members of the community, meeting my stakeholders that I'm going to be working with, listening to the concerns of my officers, as well as the ideas and suggestions of my command staff. I feel like I have a really great support system here at District 6. I was fortunate to be able to keep all 4 of my lieutenants that have been here a while, that they're working hard to get me up to speed and knowing all of the things that I need to know. I've also been fortunate to follow now Chief Sanchez, who was the former commander of District 6, because he did an incredible job at establishing relationships within this District 6 community. And not only that, he continues to maintain those relationships and keeps checking up on me frequently, which I so appreciate. He's always available if I have questions or need help or guidance on something. So I feel like I'm on the right track. I feel like I have a plan moving forward, and I've been executing that plan. So that's it.
Great. And what do you, so far, and again, knowing it hasn't been too long, but what has come to you as the biggest challenges on the job?
In one sentence, which I'll expand upon, I don't know what I don't know just yet. Unfortunately, I wish I could give a bigger and better answer, but I have been in patrol for little chunks of my career, but currently it's been some time. So the last time I was in patrol is the end of 2018 or beginning of 2019. So it's been a few minutes since I've been here. So not only learning my new role as the commander, but refreshing my memory and refreshing my knowledge of the patrol functions and some of the things that have changed since I last worked here in District 6 as well. And so currently that's my biggest challenge. I know that that's going to change as, the summer comes and the weather heats up and, the crime changes and moves and increases or decreases. So I know those, the challenges are definitely going to change. But for right at this present moment, it's trying to get up to speed.
Sure. Yeah, completely understandable. What is your role in implementing Mayor Hancock's 2022 Safety Action Plan?
Sure, that's a really great question, and I did take some notes, so bear with me. I might be
Sure.
looking down at my notes a little bit. So DPD is continuing to focus on crime prevention and addressing crime in the identified hotspots. If you're not familiar with hotspots, we use data to inform our decisions of where the crimes are occurring, like these clusters of continuous crime that's staying in the same spot. So those are called hotspots. So collaborative crime prevention program efforts have helped to reduce homicides and shootings in 4 of the 5 violent hotspots that are identified in 2021. What the collaborative crime prevention program is, it's precision policing, meaning data driven, and outreach in collaboration with city and community partners. So just a couple of statistics. We've got a hotspot at 47th and Peoria, and that has seen a decrease of 74% from 2020 to 2021. Alameda and Federal has seen a reduction from of 73%. We went from 41 to 11. The area that we've seen a slight increase is downtown at Colfax and Broadway and Lodo. That's seen a 7% increase, but the numbers on that are they went from 42 incidents in a year to 45 incidents in a year. So 3 more incidents made that 7% jump. Colfax and Yosemite has seen a 37% reduction, and Martin Luther King and Hawley has seen a 100% reduction. They went from 17 aggravated assault shootings in 2020 to 0 in 2021. So building on those successes, of course, we're planning on using that same model to the 3 additional identified hotspots in Denver, which are going to be 14th Avenue and Federal, Mississippi and Raritan, and Dartmouth and Havana.
Mhm.
There will also be enhanced security and safety along the 16th Street Mall and several of our downtown neighborhoods. And I don't know if you've been following the news regarding Union Station, but there has definitely been an increased effort there with over 1,000 arrests and citations from November 1st through the end of March. And so that's due to our efforts, increased enforcement operations and stuff like that. As far as getting guns off the street, the department has seen a 28% increase in the illegal guns that were seized off the street compared to the 3-year average. So for example, in 2021, we recovered 2,095 illegal guns from the city and county of Denver. We're continuing to work with our partners with establishing the AID Center, which stands for Assessment Intake Diversion. That's going to be a center that operates 24/7 and 365 to continue supporting those in need of mental health and drug addiction services with resources. We plan on expanding the STAR program and co-responder programs to cover more areas of the city. A story about our co-responder program is we started with 3 co-responders in 2016. To date, we have 32 co-responders, and I believe we're planning on implementing another 6 within the next several months. I'm not sure about the number of 6. I know we're hiring a few more within the next 6 months. As far as recruitment and retention, we're trying to recruit and hire 144 new recruits this year, along with 40 lateral recruits. We're hiring a civilian academic director to bolster our training and educational opportunities. We're opening up a professional policing and leadership center in partnership with a local university that can be a resource for enhanced training to our officers. So these are all in process. This is not completed yet, but it's definitely in process. And then we are also part of the 30 by 30 initiative. And if you're not familiar with that, that's we have signed an initiative that with the goal of having 30% of our department be female by the year 2030. So we are actually above the national average, currently at just below 16%. The national average, I believe, is 12%, maybe 13%. So we're already above the national average, but there's definitely room to improve in that area.
That's a lot. There's a lot going on there. Yeah.
It sure is.
Yeah, and I think just hearing your statistics and that you are a data-driven organization, that you are keeping track and looking for progress and looking for improvements.
Absolutely.
Mhm. You mentioned the STAR program, and we want to go into that a little bit more because we did have our April 5th briefing in which we heard from Chris Richardson, the Mental Health Center of Denver, and Carly Salen, licensed social worker, about the innovations in behavioral health and boosting the effectiveness of community policing. So would you share more on your insights into the benefits of the program and how it has informed your thinking about how police operate and the role of police?
I was really excited to see this question come through because I was fortunate to be one of the first group to go for our department to do a site visit of the Cahoots program. I don't know if you're familiar with that, from Eugene, Oregon. So myself and about 8 or 10 others, including Chris and Carly, we all went out to Eugene together. We got to look at their Cahoots program. It stands for Crisis Assistance Helping Out on the Streets. And their program, we modeled our program after theirs. We knew that it was something that we wanted to do. This was back in 2019 where we did the site visit. I think it was in May of 2019. From then, we were part of a focus group, and we rolled out the program in June of 2020. I know that some people thought that rollout was due to the protests, but it was not. It was a program that we were already working at implementing. It was just actually beneficial to have it roll out at that time because of all of the people that had lost their jobs and were in crisis or needed the extra resources and support due to COVID. So I'm a big fan of the STAR program. A lot of the previous times where police have been called to those low level mental health or substance misuse or welfare checks, those really should never have been directed towards law enforcement. There was better options. There was not a better option at that time, but now there is. And so it's a great service for community. It's a great service for officers. They can really take their time and give the person what it is they exactly need. Where sometimes an officer is looking at the calls for service queue and there's 10 calls holding and they're on this call how can we help this person? But it's, maybe the officers don't know all of the resources to be able to help somebody. And that's where the STAR program is exactly perfect. Sometimes all somebody needs is a bottle of water and a pair of socks, and so we're very fortunate to have the STAR program here in Denver. And like I said, it's expanding. We started out with one van in a very small area with 2 people working the van, a clinician, and Carly was one of the 2. And so we're just really proud of how it's grown. And I think it's been a good thing. There's not been any arrests that have resulted from any calls for service from STAR. So yeah, the officers can then focus on self-initiated things and handling those high priority calls for service.
So it sounds like you feel like then the police can focus on what's within their wheelhouse to be able to handle. And
Absolutely.
then having the support. Yeah, great.
Definitely. Yeah. And we, although we do have crisis intervention training, we are trained on, recognizing some of those things. People from the STAR van and other mental health providers and clinicians, they are the experts in those fields, and they're really better equipped sometimes to handle those calls, especially when there's no violence involved, no threat of violence, no indication of weapons and things like that. They are amazing.
Terrific. That's terrific to hear that partnership. And I didn't realize you were part of the original team. So that's great to hear as well. I'm going to let you rest for a moment and have some questions then for Lieutenant Fulmar. And with you, again, knowing you're new to your role, what do you see as the priorities and how are you supported so that you can be successful in your job?
Sure. I touched on that grace, grit, and go for the priorities kind of overall and how I communicate with the recruits. And also what we're looking for to expand into the CEP program, the continued education program. And if I can share a quick story, I think that encompasses really what I'm trying to get officers that are recruits and soon hopefully to be sworn officers and sworn officers to remember is years, and I hate to say, but years ago, when I was a recruit, a baby officer, I had an officer, Doug Byrne, that, taught me how to put on my stuff and made sure all my things were on. And as I was clearing training, he asked me what kind of officer did I want to be. And I was like, I don't know, maybe, maybe a SWAT officer or a canine or detective. There's so many cool things. I don't know. And I really respected him. And I asked him, I said, well, what kind of officer do you want to be? And he thought about it for a minute. And he said, I want to be the officer that I want to show up to my house or my friends or loved one's house. And I really took that with me. And again, I can't say enough about him. He was an amazing person and an amazing officer. Unfortunately, he was killed in the line of duty. He had lateral to Aurora. So I tell that story to a lot of people, and certainly to the recruits, and try to remind officers that I've had to supervise that were maybe struggling with or needed a reminder of why we do this job. And like Kim said, to help people. And so I think my role in that is to, as we have the new people on board, the new generations on board, is to have that in their mind. You can have all the schooling, you can have all the knowledge, you can have all the skills, but are you the person you'd want to show up to your house or your loved one's house? And after you've been here a minute, and maybe you're tired and you're frustrated and you're just having a challenging time, are you still that person? And then we need to maybe have that hard ask and conversation with ourselves. So in the overall, that's the whole point of why we do all the things that we do, and the techniques and the tactics. And I think, I can't say enough about my team. I have an outstanding team. Sergeant Virginia Quinones, our staff, our technicians. I got to follow Kim's footsteps. And I too have Chief Aaron Sanchez as my boss now as well. And he has been incredible to work for. He has also that heart of training and getting information, not just to our recruits, but also to our entire department, and making sure that we have what we need so we can get that pushed out and be adaptable, especially since, I don't know, we had these kind of crazy 2 years of COVID and here we are, virtual meetings. So and being able to really take that technology forward, just a tremendous support and also energy. He has a lot of energy. So we appreciate that.
That's great. That's great. When we first came together as a group, the 4 of us at the time, one of our first questions was looking at the training. It was really a focus for us to understand what are the skills, knowledge, and abilities that police officers are expected to have. Because when we think about it, we actually, as citizens, don't know what the training is and don't know what the expectations are. So would you go a little bit into that as to what the training consists of?
We talked about the fortitude, the hope, the temperance, our foundation of integrity, courage, and service. But, what does that mean? What does that person look like that would show up to your house, that you actually want to show up in your time of crisis, or, your time of needing some assistance? And I think it comes down to, we talk about integrity and what does that mean for character. We need good character, and we need to have people who have a heart of service, that want to be a lifelong learner, that are curious, that can come back from challenge and continue to do better. We also really focus on, you'll hear us say a lot, EI, or emotional intelligence. And it's not just the buzzword. We actually have practical applications about that. We start out our recruits, we do a profile on them. We have the books for them. There's tests involved, and we measure that. And that is something that if they are starting to struggle, that we have our learning objectives that we can put them on plans. And the key component of that is for them to identify their root cause of why they're struggling, and also for them to provide that solution, because we need that problem solving and that high emotional intelligence. And that's something that the great benefit of that is something where I'm probably never going to be a rocket scientist. Let's just be clear, and do that level of math. But what we can always do is improve our emotional intelligence.
Mhm. So some of the technical skills, when we look on the website, we see federal, state, and municipal law, search and seizure, arrest control, firearms, physical fitness, emergency driving, report writing, patrol tactics, and community interaction, which I'm interested to hear a little bit more. But is there anything missing in terms of kind of the hard skills, or, those, I guess, just those kinds of skills, anything else that they're getting in their training?
So we do a comprehensive, really a 360 approach as well. So that's what we're factoring in, that emotional intelligence. We also changed training models. There was a more older training model that had been around for years that a lot of agencies use. We now use a model that really, where EI, that emotional intelligence, is at its core. And to demonstrate that, we have the recruits go through applications of putting all these things together under stress. And then obviously we monitor that, we evaluate that. So scenario-based training is huge and is integrated as a key fabric into our training. So it's not just you can take a test well, or you can demonstrate a task well. Can you do it under stress? Yes, that's a factor. But more importantly, when we put it all together, can you do it, and can you communicate in a professional and respectful way that our mission statement, demands, that we treat everybody with that respect and dignity, even when we're under stress.
Mm-hmm. And this isn't a question I gave you ahead of time, but is that kind of a norm across the country, or is Denver leading the way in that approach to its training?
I'm going to be personal in this and say I believe Denver is leading the way. I've had the advantage, and not to disparage any other departments. I can just say from our training models, from the way that we integrate the emotional intelligence, the way that we partner with Starband, the way that we were, and Kim, you may know this too, that one of the, if you want to correct me, I know if we weren't the first, we were one of the first with that cahoots even back, and I want to say 2015 or I believe 16, that we had co-responders, so mental health clinicians from MHCD Mental Health Centers of Denver riding in the cars with us. And now Kim actually oversaw the expansion of that program, outreach caseworkers, which are the social workers that actually kind of bridge into that and then into the Starband. Mm-hmm. So, and we have things, I mean, I can kind of go on. We have, the Women's Collective, which is an internal for sworn and professional staff, non-sworn staff, that focuses on that. I'm part of the Community Corrections Board as we talk about services for people transitioning back into community. We have, we're liaisons for the LGBTQ plus commission. So all those things are also brought into the academy so that people with different shared and lived experiences get to have interaction with the diverse community that we serve. So yes, I think we're the best.
That's great. It does sound really, truly like Denver is leading in a lot of areas in terms of modern policing. When you are looking at these and coming at some of these ideas, how many of them are coming from outside resources, and maybe not even within police, but other industries? How are you informed of best practices? How has that process come about?
And I think just if we talk analytics, we have, we're very proud of our data analytic unit. So they're constantly mining that data that Kim was kind of speaking to. And then we also are involved in a lot of different professional organizations, PERF, which you may have heard of, and that's a national advisory for policing, the International Chiefs of Police. So we get a lot from, like, say, internal partners that are law enforcement specific, but we also have all these partnerships like with MHCD, with STAR, with paramedics, with our community partners, churches, community groups. And I'd like to believe that we have a, open bridge of communication back and forth so that we keep in touch. Like we said, the police are the people and the people are the police, and that we're tapped in and have that pulse on the community. So we can be adaptive and pivot when we need to, and really listen to the community through all of our community events, events like this, and engagements to hear back, we think this is important. Do you think that's, because you may be like, oh no, we need to adjust. That's not as important to us. We have concerns over here. And I think that's one of the reasons why we've been able to adapt so quickly to STAR van and clinicians and outreach caseworkers, because we're listening.
As I heard the numbers for the number of staff that go through, what is the support? There has to be supervisors, and like, what are those ratios, and what's the support for the supervisors? What's the training for them to be able to work through all of the complex issues of supervising?
So that's the part of the continuing education program. And to even be a sergeant or a lieutenant, you have to go through rigorous testing, and we call it a summer kill, because it's this testing cycle season is right now for lieutenants, and we do it every other year with lieutenants and sergeants. It literally is the test itself, a good 6 months of testing, and you have to pass certain phases to move on, and then to be part of the list, promotional list. And that requires not only knowing the ops manual, our operations manual, but also reading these outside books that aren't just law enforcement specific. It talks about leadership. It talks about emotional intelligence. It talks about mental health and wellness and recognizing stress indicators, and a lot of things that are more widely encompassing than just reading about law or something like that. So there's the testing, the rigorous testing that occurs. And then once somebody, and then all the pre-leadership courses that people can take through the continuing education, things that are done on the district level, on the department level. We even can go to outside training. We partner with Denver University and several other universities like Kim was speaking to get, again, that more well-rounded. Let's hear also from the community, not just have police instructors, but people from a lot of different backgrounds. And then for the prep for promotional or after, once you've obtained it, there are additional schools and specific supervisory classes. We integrate with HR. We talk about EEO practice. We talk about, anti-biased policing, the expectations of a supervisor. We're also a ABLE agency, so that active bystandership in law enforcement. And we have gotten through, I believe, almost everybody in the department, even with COVID challenges. So great shout out to our team that we have doing that, and are now starting the beginning of the refreshers. We're also integrating ICAT, which is integrating communications assessment and tactics, where we really bridge in and build in customizable scenarios and things that deal with de-escalation, where also then we bridge in, this is how we transition over to maybe our clinicians or our STAR or all these other programs that we can kind of do those warm handoffs into. So there's several entities with that outside of the strict policy procedure, the mayoral executive directive orders for each supervisor that we're required to be to not only know, but to practice.
Lots of input there, lots of different sources, and yeah, lots of best practices sounds like coming in. This question came to us because we realized people seem to have an understanding of police based on two things. One is they've had real interaction with the police themselves, either maybe as a victim or a perpetrator, or TV. And that television gives us idea of, and movies give us this idea of what it means to be a police officer that may or may not be realistic I'm certain, or our thought was that it does inform people coming in as to what it means versus the reality of what you're describing. And so could you talk to, does that resonate? Do you find people come in with one idea of what it means and then they realize, oh, there's so many other layers to this, and how do you deal with that?
Sure, and for some people, it's pretty quick because obviously the academy wants to set that tone and that standard from day one. So if you came in and thought you were gonna, and I'm maybe aging myself, but all this crazy stuff like Miami Vice or something like that, that's not real, and certainly not the attitude. So I first want to recognize certainly our recruitment division, Commander West and his team. And, in our partnership, our work with civil service, because there's a lot of front end things that have to happen for them to even have the opportunity to be selected to attend the academy. So it's not a one-page application. It is literally a thick packet. And again, that hiring process can also take up to about 6 months. And they have to go through civil service testing. During that, it's required that you take a polygraph, you do a physical, you do a drug screening, you have a psychological evaluation, and a myriad of other tests you have to pass are physical. And then there is a panel interview that applicant has before they are selected to attempt and come into the academy. So that's one way I think that's a lot different than TV, and also that we don't get those complex crimes solved in 45 minutes with commercials. So
No?
I know
Takes a little longer.
a
Yeah.
little bit longer, a little bit.
So
So
it's
there are
really,
a lot of mechanisms in place for that.
yeah, that through, by the time they're standing there in the academy, they've gotten a good amount of information about the reality. Great. Well, let's transition back, and we just have a few more questions for the both of you, and then we will take a moment to open it up to the entire group. And this, we don't want to be, this isn't done in a spirit of confrontation, but really of education and information, because we know that both of you, first of all, have hard jobs. And you are literally in the hot seats in both of your jobs in terms of the hot spots and in terms of training. So we want to ask the questions about the recent lawsuit in which the police department was found to not have provided adequate training to officers to handle the demonstrations. What are the changes that have been or will be implemented to better prepare officers for crowd control and demonstrations? And
So
I'm not sure who.
I can take that.
Okay, great.
Because the city of Denver has just announced that it intends to appeal the verdict, I cannot discuss the lawsuit or the claims, but what I can say is that in general, those were extraordinary circumstances, and we are a learning agency. Updates to policy and training were made, and that's all of the comment that I can make on that.
Sure, thank you. How is race and bias discussed in the department? And I did hear some mention of bias awareness and bias training, implicit bias. We've come to understand there's a widespread belief in the Black community in Denver that the Denver police had ties to the KKK. How is that reflected in the department, or how do you address that and to try to change that perception? And not to tell a different story, but to recognize it. And I'm not sure who wants to answer that. Perhaps Commander Bowser.
Actually, I'm going to kick that to Lieutenant Fulmer. I think she's going to plan on discussing the race and bias issue because of her position in training.
Perfect. Thank you.
Well, that's really hurtful and concerning to hear, right? I mean, that anybody would feel that way. And working, and certainly I'm in the LGBTQ plus community, and I understand and also working in bias motivated crimes. And we're one of the few agencies that actually has dedicated detectives for that specific, not as an add-on, but for that specific crime group. So investigation group. And I can say it's not only just, right, it's not just the reality of something, it's whether you believe it and you have a perception of crime. If you believe that just because of who you are, how you present, how you walk down to the street, you are going to be unfairly treated, or contacted just trying to live your daily life and your lived experience, that's extremely sensitive. And it's imperative, for us, and I believe that we do as the Denver Police Department, we are the advocates and the voice for the people who are afraid to speak up. There are numerous people with different backgrounds on this department, which are embraced and supported and celebrated. We do a lot of work with, and we say that, right? We say we do a lot of work, but the belief, right? The belief that you are going to be heard, that we start by believing. So when you come to us and say, this happened to me, I believe you. And let's work through that, and let's find an answer for that. If somebody believes and has experienced what they believe to be biased coming from internal affairs, there is a mechanism through not only the Denver Police Department, but through the city HR, and through the Office of the Independent Monitor, where we encourage you to make those complaints so that we can investigate it and get to the root cause of that, because we won't tolerate it. So I hope that kind of answered your question. I might have went off a little bit.
No, I think first of all, recognizing that is the lived experience of people, and that I hear that you and the department are understanding the importance of that. And I'm taking that to mean that understanding that people who had that experience in the past, you're going to listen to those stories. So it does go to that many people don't feel safe with the police, and because they had bad experiences. So what are you doing to specifically improve the relationship between the people who say the police aren't there for me? And you gave kind of a high level answer, but kind of taking it down to what does that actually mean? How do you have those conversations?
And either I can jump in, or Kim.
We can both answer. I'll take the first
Yeah.
part, and then if you want to step in. If I didn't say it before, the police and community are better together. We can't be good without each other. We need each other for the common goal of safety, right? So what that means is that it's about consistency, meeting people where they are, and treating people with dignity and respect. Lieutenant Fulmer and I are here today. This is an example of us trying to engage with your community. We want to go to those community groups. I had a basketball event today that I had officers at. Every other Thursday, there's coffee with the cops. We want to go to your events, not from an enforcement perspective, but from a human perspective, right? We're people, we're moms, we're sisters, we're family, we have hobbies, things like that. So we want to integrate with the community. We want the community to trust us. And in order to do that, I think they need to see us as humans, not just this uniform that we wear.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What do you want the league to know about the police department and public safety?
I think from my perspective that we're open, and that we're you, right? I don't wear this 24/7. Sometimes I feel like I do, but I don't. And that where we can come to that commonality, like Kim was saying, you get those personal relationships. So maybe you didn't have a good experience with a police officer, but you can have a good experience with me. I'm gonna do my best to build that rapport, to build that relationship, so that maybe you don't trust everybody, but maybe I could be that person. And so that goes back to my point of, are we being the person that we'd want to show up to our house, that we would talk to, that I would feel comfortable with? And that's a self-check for me, even if I'm not having the greatest day, to remember I'm representing the police department. And that's that instilling that ground level every day with the recruits. You represent every single one of us.
Mm-hmm.
So you kind of lose that ability to have a bad day. And we do have resources for you if you do, but not in those moments when we're having that service to the community. Because if you know Michelle, right, I'm not Lieutenant Fulmer. If you know Michelle, you can call Michelle and we can talk about some things. And I can explain maybe why some things happened or didn't happen. And if I can't solve it, I think being that good referral agent, I can still get you to the Rosandum Center, right? And that's that DV, you know, the domestic violence support.
Mhm.
It's free and confidential, and you don't have to be part of a police system or a case to have it, or to Chris Richardson and his team. So we can at least do that.
Mhm. Great. And Commander Bowser, did you want to answer that for yourself of what you want the League of Women Voters of Denver to know?
Really just to piggyback on my last answer is that we're people. We're, like I said, I have 2 teenagers, so please pray for me. No, we're just people. I mean, we're
Yeah.
just people like everyone else. We have feelings. We have goals, desires. We want to work with people. So I think if we can humanize each other, that's the first step to, you know, those good community relations that we're looking for.
Yeah, great. And what are your recommendations for the people here and just for individual citizens in general in advocating for public safety reform or measures or finance? What are your thoughts?
Sure. So the first thing that I would recommend is really take a look at our policies and procedures. Those are all available online at the denvergov.org/police website. Our full operations manual is there. So take a look and see what you'd like to focus on reforming. Education, I think, should take place first before moving on to the reform step. A year or so ago, there was that community group that came up with those 150 recommendations for the Denver Police Department. And I'm proud to say that prior to those recommendations, we were already doing a majority of those things. Okay, so I think people don't really realize how progressive an agency we are. But definitely, like I said before, we're a learning agency. We want to always improve. We want to do better. We want to get those best practices implemented in our agency. So really take a look at the policies and procedures and see where are we falling short somewhere. Could we add something? Do we need to add more oversight here or something else there? So that's all available for free on our website.
Okay, great. Anything to add to that, Lieutenant Fulmer?
You know, just to mirror that if we don't know, you know, we're not able to have that discussion or fix it or modify it or adapt. So that communication, and I just want to again thank you for opening up this forum and this opportunity to have those discussions, because you definitely have both of our contact information, and this isn't, you know, like a one and done. I'm certainly open anytime for questions, or if you would like to have a tour, you know, we can arrange certain things in that regard too. So we hope that it's a long-term relationship.
We hope the same. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Well, why don't we thank you so much for coming with these answers, and we're going to take a moment just to give people time to collect your thoughts and put your questions in chat. I see that there are some questions already. And then once we hear from that, we'll give you some more questions. I'll just take a moment. Let's give it another minute. So this first question, I think, hearing you speak and recognizing you as individuals and people, how do you personally deal with negative attitudes toward the police? And we heard a little bit about that, of your personal philosophies, but what has been your way of being able to cope with that pressure and being able to respond? And I'll ask Commander Bowser to start with that.
Sure. So I just keep reminding myself that it's not personal. So it's not, they're mad at me, Kim. They're upset with the things that law enforcement has done or footage that has been seen. It's not me personally. It's the fact that I wear this uniform. If they knew me, Kim, I don't think that they would have a negative attitude towards me. It's simply the profession. So I frequently remind myself of that. And I can say that those attitudes are hurtful because I feel like I've always conducted myself personally in a way that's been respectful to the community and to my officers. And so it does hurt my feelings because I don't feel like I've contributed to those negative attitudes. But again, it isn't personal, and I just keep reminding myself of that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Lieutenant Fulmer, how about you?
You know, one of the things that I actually sometimes take it as a compliment, and then that opens up a form of engagement is, you know, sometimes off duty, I look different, or I may be riding a motorcycle or doing some Halloween project out in my front yard, or who knows what. And for people to, maybe I just meet in the coffee shop and we're just chatting about things. And then they find out what I do and they're like, well, you don't look like a police officer, or maybe you don't talk like a police officer. And so I'm like, well, tell me more about that. What does that mean? And I think back to your question, some of those stereotypes have been perpetrated by TV.
Mm-hmm.
And they have this certain persona all the time, or rigidness, or that we're not approachable. And so I do enjoy those moments when I get to share that. And again, that opens up another form of communication. And then we get to, sometimes because we've had that rapport, then I get to ask them, well, tell me about your experiences. Why? I mean, nobody likes a speeding ticket, myself included, or a parking ticket. But then it has really opened up a lot of engagement. So I also hope to encourage officers, and I know it can be scary and like Kim said, very hurtful, to continue to, even when you're off duty, you know, share and have a conversation over coffee about it.
Mm-hmm.
To echo what Michelle said, that she just reminded me, I do the exact same thing. So I never let people in on what I do for a living until I know them. And so, like, for example, the classes that I take at the gym, right? The group classes, I have fun. I get to know people. And eventually over time, maybe that question comes up. Well, what do you do? And then I say, I'm a police officer. And they're like, oh, it's always shock. It's always surprise, because it's that perception, right, Michelle? Like, people like, well, you don't look like a police officer. You don't act like a police officer. You don't talk like one. So I think that actually does go a long way to changing the perception, like little by little individually. Another thing is the fact that a smile goes a long way, right? So like, I used to work off duty at the Whole Foods or at a different job, but like smiling and saying hi to people seems to be something unexpected from a police officer. I'm not sure why, but that I have tried to do that as well, because that I think goes a really long way. Sorry to hijack that question.
No, that was an awesome answer. And I think I asked people back, well, maybe a police officer looks like you. I mean, right? Don't we want those diverse and inclusive perspectives, like in the organization? So yeah, and I love Kim's answer, and she does smile a lot. So
it's great. And so taking that as an opportunity to have people get to know you personally. Could you say more about cultural and racial sensitivity training? How is the culture inside the organization structured to achieve racial and cultural respect? And I'll give that to you, Lieutenant Fulmer.
Well, from day one at the academy, and in fact, actually, it's more than day one, right? It's in the recruitment, it's in the civil service, it's in the background checks. We actually, to help also people be successful and to learn more, to prepare for that first day, we are sending out our handbooks that have our mission statement, our value statement. I talked about the points on the badge and integrity and honesty. We send all that out to set that clear message. And then day one and from day, whatever 30, 35 years or whatever somebody gets to do is kind of that broad answer. And then the more specific is we have, anti-bias training. We have a bias motivated investigative unit. It's very deeply woven into our fabric. We have the women's collective. We, are members and certainly supporters of the LGBTQ plus community, which spans like literally the rainbow. And so it's a pretty common training point. We had back to basics a couple of years ago. The entire department went through where we actually went out into underserved communities and crisis centers and had our officers, and they were in plain clothes. So we want to have that shared perspective. And I mean, they knew they were officers coming, but to have that more equal level playing field to share somebody's else, perspective and to really see what it is like to be in their shoes. So it's really a ongoing everyday thing.
Has there been difficulty, as we hear everywhere, there's difficulty hiring people? Has it been difficult to get the number of recruits you need? And with this new influx of people that you're looking to hire, has that been challenging, the job market or the labor market?
You can jump into, because you were there right before and experiencing the same challenges. Yes, and I think it's for a myriad of reasons, not just the anti-police sentiment, but I think it's also people are recalibrating their work-life balance. There's been job changes. There's been people literally moved. And certainly there has also been the fear and worry of COVID, and we've been in it the entire time. Even before, some of the unrest, we were in COVID and we showed up to work every single day. First responders, never fluctuated. So, we're the ones who, it's a 24/7 job. And so I know people are, had some fear about that, just from that side of it coming in. And then, just adapting to society and how we are recruiting people in and testing and being mindful, and our psychological services vetting people that we are getting the right people.
One of these questions is, you two are certainly inspiring, and we're proud that DPD is a leader in more caring policing, but it can't be perfect. There are obviously problems in policing around the country, and how do you respond to that? And I guess I'm going to take it a little bit further of how are you influencing that?
I think that participating in things like this to kind of bridge the gap between what people have seen or experienced and what can be possible, right? So certainly our profession is not perfect. I don't think there really is a profession that's perfect. I think that bridging the gap can go a long way to respond to those types of questions, right? Let's have that conversation, as Michelle mentioned earlier. Let's talk about it. What does that look like? Tell me about your experience. Maybe it's the issue of they had a contact with the police and they didn't understand why, or they didn't understand the result. And so sometimes, even though maybe Michelle or I weren't present, sometimes we can kind of explain, well, this is why they did that thing, and this is why they did that thing. Sometimes what it really takes for people to understand a little bit better is for us to take that extra couple of minutes and really explain what we're doing, why we're doing it, and the consequences of this versus that, and kind of thing. So I think that if we can take that extra time, I think that would go a long way.
Anything you want to add to that, Lieutenant Fulmer?
Well, I think the training, it's not that we got the training and then we got the the buy-in on it for ABLE or for ICAT. It was that it just is an enhancement to what we're already doing, and that really setting the tone, the statement, the tone, and the mechanisms to report if there are any of those issues, and that we focus on de-escalation. There's an expectation of that, and that communication piece, and the active bystandership that we are our brother and sisters keepers, right?
Mhm.
So it is on us to recognize something and to intervene. And there is very, not just the emotional part of it, and that, we should do it character based, but there are also some very hard consequences if we don't.
So I think there's consequences, certainly being held accountable. One of the things I question is, can you help assure us that a tragic incident like what happened with George Floyd couldn't happen in Denver? And I don't know that you can give us an absolute assurance, but what steps are in place that would prevent that kind of tragedy? Commander Bowser?
Okay, I wasn't sure if Michelle wanted to take
Oh,
that, but no,
Yeah.
I can add in too.
let me,
Okay.
I'll start and then I'll kick it to you, Michelle. So as she just mentioned, we have the active bystandership for law enforcement, which we are considered an ABLE agency because it's been implemented to the T as the requirement. However, prior to that, there's always been policy within Denver that we are to step in if we witness inappropriate behavior among officers. What is awesome about the ABLE training is it tells us how to do that now, right? So let's say I am completely out of line with an interaction with a citizen, and one of my subordinates is with me. Prior to the ABLE training, they may have felt very uncomfortable stepping in and saying, hey, I got this, boss, let me take over for you and stuff. But now we have those tools in our toolbox. We've got the education, we have the training, we know what to do. I know personally that if Chief Payson was escalating an incident and he was out of line, I could go and I could intervene on him.
Mhm.
Not only is it the culture of our department that we do that now, it's also the law, right? So it's the duty to intervene. So we have the training, we've always had the policy, now we have the tools in our toolbox to do so. So I cannot for sure 100%, 1000% say we'll never have an incident here, but as we've both mentioned before, we're a very progressive agency. We've have all of these things in place. Do we always get everything right all of the time? No, of course not. But we're a learning agency and we always want to do better.
Mhm. And I can see the value of that given the hierarchy of the police department, why you need that. This is how you do it. And that makes it clear to everybody what you're supposed to do. Did you have more to add to that, Lieutenant Fulmer?
I think it just speaks to and reinforces we set culture, right? We know one of the hardest things to change is culture. So, support it and have it good on the front side and continue to build on that. So our culture is that we don't tolerate it. And then I think to Kim's point, the culture is also, well, that's great, but what about when you're in the middle of a crisis, you're in a life safety situation for yourself, and it's scary, it's terrifying to be there and have to push and work through that. So what do you do in those heightened escalated moments for everybody? And I think that is a wonderful tool. We have de-escalation, and then also I wanted to recognize the Denver Police Foundation, because the Academy has this amazing virtual experience where officers can be put into this environment, have a lot of things come at them, and then we can really evaluate, debrief, and train on their reactions. So we can recreate some of those simulations so that people already know. And I'm going to date myself again, your brain doesn't know if it's real or if it's Memorex, and that's some people will get that joke, but your brain doesn't know the difference. So it simulate those stresses. So the first time you see it is not when it's real life and you are in a panic mode. That's what we want to decrease, is panic. And the ABLE training, the virtual training, the ongoing debriefing training, that our officers in real time are doing help support that.
Mhm. And just you just describing that, that's good for the officer and that's good for the citizen. So everybody benefits from having that kind of training. Yeah. What is your interaction with the Citizen Oversight Board? Do either one of you have direct interaction with that? Or
I have-
knowledge?
I have not been in an assignment where I've had interaction with the Citizen Oversight Board, so I can't speak to that question.
Okay.
I think the
Lieutenant Fo-
closest was, being in internal affairs, we communicated regularly with the Office of the Independent Monitor, which I know communicates with the Oversight Board, so that we would get shared information or concerns, or they would forward complaints that were maybe generated through that arm, but not directly.
Okay, could you speak to the Office of the Independent Monitor a little bit as to what your interaction has been?
Well, sure. The Office of the Independent Monitor is that it's independent, and it is a monitoring entity within the city that when a complaint comes through, whether it's internally generated through members of the department or externally through any member, any means that comes in through the Office of the Independent Monitor, it's forwarded to Internal Affairs, which then does an assessment of that. And then if a case is warranted, then a case is opened. And all those cases that are opened, the Independent Monitor actually can see and view all the things that are being done on the investigation side, all the evidence, video, any of statements, anything like that. So once the Internal Affairs side completes their investigation, before we can even send it or forward it to our Conduct Review Office, the OIM has to look at it, review it, may have recommendations, and they will then, say, yes, we don't have any more recommendations, or yes, we do, before it is even forwarded back to the Conduct Review Office for further review. If there's any hint of a potential law violation, we also bring in the District Attorney's Office, and they have to do review as well. So you're having a review of any complaint through multiple and independent entities.
Mhm. Thank you. Thank you. I know we have a few more questions, but I feel we need to honor everyone's time, and I'm going to wrap up. But what I would like to ask is if I can send these remaining questions to you and we can get answers to them that we can then put in our briefing letter. Would that be okay? There's just a couple more.
Yeah,
Great.
I would be definitely okay with that.
Great, thank you. We want to thank you for your time, for being so candid with us and helping us to better understand your jobs and how the Denver Police Department operates within the community. I'd like to have everybody go off mute for a moment just to be able to express our appreciation to you. And Andrea, maybe can you do a group taking everybody off? It looks like everyone's off. So can we just give you a round of applause? It's really tremendous. It's a privilege to be able to spend time with you and to get to know you. Just one last slide as we close. I want to thank any visitors that we had today. To let you know that it is our major fundraising event of the bulb sale. And I have to tell you, Jeanette gave me some bulbs and they are coming up. They're beautiful yellow tulips coming up in my yard today. And we encourage you to take a look at that if you'd like to make a donation to the League or join the League. And by the way, the League isn't just for women. We encourage you to visit our website. So with that, thank you so much to our guests and to our members and to our speakers, Lieutenant Fulmar and Commander Bowser. It's been a lovely evening. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great night.
Have a great night.
You too.
Thank you.